yo no hablo español, pero porque sé muchos de mis subscribers hablan español, yo traducí este video usando Google Translate, así que lo siento si los subtítulos están mal, pero espero que todavía disfrutar. Gracias. For this project, I am using size 4 yarn from the brand Impeccable, as well as a size 5mm hook. And the first thing that you're going to do is create a slip knot. And after you've created your slip knot, then you're going to chain a chain that is long enough to cover from one side of your ribs to the other side. So when you put it against your torso, it covers pretty much from here to here. And after you have created that chain, you're going to go back on that chain using a single crochet. And if you're unfamiliar with a single crochet, it is through the stitch, yarn over, back through the stitch, yarn over again, and back through the last 2 loops. Now, if that's a little too fast for you or you're completely new to crochet, I do have a crocheting for beginners video that I will link in the description box below, so you can practice with that for a while, maybe try some other more beginner friendly tutorials that I have, and then come back to this one. So once you have reached the end of the row, I'm going into the very last stitch here, you're going to chain 1, flip it over, and then continue making another row of single crochet on top of the previous row of single crochet that you created. Now remember, every time that you reach the end of the row, you're going to chain 1 and flip it over. That extra chain 1 makes all the difference because it makes the edges of the project square, or I guess rectangular, and you want that shape right now as opposed to a little bit later where we're actually going to do something a little different. But for now, again, every time you reach the end of the row, you're going to chain 1, flip it over, and then go into that first stitch, and then also continue making single crochets within every previous stitch. And it should look something like this, like a rectangular shape. And you're just going to continue making rows and rows and rows of single crochet until you put it against yourself and you're happy with the coverage. Now mine is a rather short crop top, so I didn't make as many rows as someone who wants more coverage. If you want it to cover all the way down to your belly button, then you're going to make pretty much double the amount of rows that I made. So your project is going to look much bigger than mine currently does right now. It's totally up to you. So again, just put it against yourself, and once you're happy with the coverage, then you can move on to the next step, which is making the cups. Now the way that I make my cups is I actually put the project against myself and then mark out where I want to make my cup, pretty much where my breasts are, and then I only work in between those 2 stitches. So from the end of the row, I'm going to single crochet my way towards that first marked stitch. And then once I reach that stitch, I'm going to continue single crocheting until the next stitch because nothing really changes until I reach that second stitch. So again, I'm approaching that slightly larger stitch that I marked out right here. It's the next stitch. See how it's slightly bigger? You can add a little marker if you want to, if you have one, or you can tie a little piece of string to the stitch or anything to make it easy for you to mark out. Again, I just do pretty much a lazy way, and I make the stitch bigger than all the other stitches by just pulling on it just ever so slightly. I don't want to wreck my project, but yeah, just continue single crocheting to the second marked stitch, and once I reach that, it's coming up right here. Woo! Okay, so obviously there's no difference right now, only when I flip it over from here, right in the middle of the project, I'm going to chain 1 and then work my way back to that other stitch that I marked out, and I'm only going to work in between those areas. I'm going to pretty much forget about the rest of the project and just work on this right now. And then we'll get to the rest of the project later. So again, just treat this as its own separate project on top of your project, and only work in between those 2 stitches that you marked out to cover your chest. So I'm going to be reaching that marked stitch right now, And once I do, chain 1, flip it over, and then continue on to my next row. Super duper easy, at least for now. It doesn't get complicated until a little bit later. So already you could see the difference between the rest of the top and this little section right here. You're, again, pretty much ignoring the rest of the top and only focusing on this section right here. So you're just going to continue making rows of single crochet just as you were before in the larger portion of the top, and you're going to make as many rows as it takes to cover half of your breast. Now I am small chested, so it really didn't take me that many rows to cover my chest, but for someone who has larger breasts, then this project is going to look drastically different because you need this to be much bigger than what I'm currently showing. But once you reach the point where you put it against yourself and it covers half of your breast, every time you reach the end of the row, instead of chaining 1, flipping it over and going into the next stitch and then going into every stitch after that like normal, you are actually not going to chain 1. You are still going to go into that first stitch, but you're actually going to skip over the second stitch right here and go right into the third stitch. Just completely forget about that second stitch, ignore it, and go into that third stitch. And then you're just going to continue down your row like normal, and what that's going to start doing is pulling the sides of the project, essentially creating your cup in the end. So again, you're just going to single crochet through the rest of the row like normal, and once you reach the very end, you're just going to flip it over without chaining 1, and then you're going to go into that first stitch, skip over the second one, and then go right into the third one. But I'm going to show you again, just so you have an idea of what I do for every single row. So I do go into all of the stitches right until the very end, right here, because I still want everything to be nice and even. So again, not chaining 1, just flipping it over, still going into that first stitch, but skipping over that second stitch, going into that third stitch, and then just continuing the row. And I'm going to do this for every single row until it gets smaller and smaller, and I am done with the cup. Now, you may need to make a little bit of changes depending on how your cup is turning out. If it is getting too small too fast, then you may not need to skip a stitch every row. You may need to alternate. So for one row you may skip that second stitch, and then for the next row you don't skip that second stitch, and that way the cup will get smaller slower, so essentially it will be bigger. Or you can run into the opposite problem where the cup is too big, it's not getting small enough fast enough. So what you need to do is actually just skip a couple stitches in between the rows, just random stitches throughout the row. Say if I ran into that problem, I'll just skip this stitch right here, right in the middle. And then in the next row, I would skip another stitch in a different place, so it's not, always the same stitch that's getting skipped. And that will make the cup close or get smaller faster. So those are the most common problems that I would think you would come across. But it's understandable that this is a little bit complicated and may vary depending on who is crocheting. I don't know, maybe this really works for me, but hopefully you could follow this easily as well. So as you can see, I am approaching the end of my cup. Because of all the skipping, the rows have gotten smaller and smaller, and now each row is only comprised of a couple stitches, and I'm still going to be skipping the second stitch every time I reach the end of the row, but still going into the very last stitch at the end of the row as well, just to make everything nice and even. And this is officially my last row, going into that first stitch, skipping over that second stitch, which is the middle stitch of the whole row, and then finishing off at the end. And boom, done with the cup. Now again, yours might look drastically different because mine is ridiculously small, because again I have a small chest, and everyone is different size. So just put it against yourself, make sure it fits, and once you are done with it, you can either detach the yarn from the yarn ball or do what I'm going to do. And what I'm going to do is single crochet my way down the side of the cup towards the middle of the project to the other side where I'm going to make my second cup the exact same way that I made this cup. So again, I'm just going to single crochet my way down the side of the cup that I just created, pretty much just jabbing my hook through any stitch it could fit through and then making a single crochet from there. And then once I reach the middle here, I'm still going to single crochet and do one more single crochet, and then from here to right here wherever I marked it, I am going to make my second cup. Another way to make sure that your cups are going to be even is to fold it in half and make sure that your marked stitches are aligned. Luckily mine were, so that's good. Mine's going to be nice and symmetrical. And again, you could put it against yourself and double check that it's going to fit you, and then do the exact same thing as you did on the first side to the second side, which is basically make your regular rows of single crochet with the chain one at the end and going into every single stitch until it covers half of your breast, and then after that, then you're going to start not chaining one at the end and then going into that first stitch and then skipping over the second stitch and so on and so forth until you are finished with your second cup. And then once you're finished with both of your cups, on the side of the second one that you just created, you're going to chain a chain. Now this is actually complicated to explain, so let me just try and show you. You're going to chain a chain that's going to cover this portion, and it is pretty awkward to try and figure out, but just pretty much put it against yourself and wrap it against yourself to see how many chains you would like to make for this. This is going to serve as the base of the actual off-the-shoulder design portion of the top. And once you've made that chain, then you're going to go back on that chain using a slip stitch. Not a single crochet, it's a slip stitch. And you're going to slip stitch actually all along your top, so all along the chain, and then all along the top as well until you reach the other side. And then once you reach the other side, you're going to create a chain with the same number of chains as the first chain that you made on the opposite side. So again, I made my chain, and then I went back on that chain with a slip stitch, and then once I reach the bottom of that chain, then I slip stitch along the side of the cup, and then once I am finished slip stitching along the side of the first cup, then I'm going to move on to the second cup all the way to the opposite side where I'm going to make my second chain, and from that second chain I'm going to stop right there and show you what I did. So again, I chained a long chain, and then I went back on that chain using a slip stitch, and then I went all along the top to the opposite side and made another chain with the same number of chains as the first strap that I made. And now I'm going to actually go back on that chain with a single crochet. Yep, not a slip stitch, a single crochet. And I'm actually going to do the same thing as I did the other side, where I go all along the chain and then all along the cups as well, and all to the opposite side. And you're going to continue doing this until the off-the-shoulder design is complete. And yes, this does take a very long time, but it does look gorgeous in the end. So I have single crocheted my way all the way to the end of the first strap that I made. So once you reach the end of the row, you're going to chain one, and then for this new row, you're actually going to make double crochets. And if you're unfamiliar with double crochets, all it is yarn over, through the stitch, yarn over again, back through the stitch, yarn over, through two loops, yarn over, through the last two loops. And again, if that was way too fast for you, I do have a crocheting for beginners video that I will link in the description box below. And this is what double crochet looks like, and again, you're going to double crochet all along not only that strap, but along the cups and then to the opposite side. And once you reach the end of that row, you're going to create yet another row of double crochet. So once you reach the end of the row, you're going to chain one and then create your second row of double crochet within the previous row of double crochet that you created. So after you've completed your second row of double crochet, your project should look like this. and your project is consisted of a chain, a row of single crochet, and 2 rows of double crochet. So at the end of your second row double crochet, you're going to chain 5 and then slip stitch into the same exact stitch, and then slip stitch into the next stitch. And then you're going to chain 5, and then you're going to slip stitch into the same exact stitch, and then slip stitch into the next stitch. Now that is different than what you would normally do when you make loops, but you want this top to look ruffly, so you're going to make these loops within the same stitch, where normally you would make a loop by starting a chain in one stitch and then reaching over to the next stitch and slip stitching in there. But this one, all of the loops are going to be within the same stitch. They're going to look like that, which looks funny now, but it's essential for making the top look nice and ruffly. And yes, this does take a very, very long time. Actually, making this entire top takes a long time. It took me probably 5 hours to make it, but then again, I did pause and reflect because I was trying to figure out how to make it, and then I was also filming it, which takes a little more time than me just focusing and crocheting myself. But yeah, this project takes a while. So this is what it should look like after you've created all the loops within the same stitch. And by now it should already start to droop down onto where your cups are as well and start looking like the off-the-shoulder design portion of the top. And after you have completed that row of loops, you're just going to continue making more loops on top of those loops for the rest of the project. But this time it's going to be different because you're not going to be making loops on top of double crochet stitches. You're going to be making loops on top of loops, which is actually probably easier. So you're going to again chain 5 and then slip stitch into the previous row of loops. It's going to look something like this. So it's really easy. You just chain 5, 3, 4, 5, and then go into this loop right here and slip stitch, and that's it. And then chain 5, and then go into the next loop and slip stitch, and that's it. That's all you have to do. It's going to look something like this. You're just going to again do it all along the top, which does take a very long time. And then once you reach the end of that row, then you're going to do the exact same thing and create yet another row and another row and another row until your heart is content with how your project looks. And once you are finished with not the very last row, but the second to last row. So once you're approaching the point where you're thinking, yes, this is the length that I want, but I just need one more row, then that's when you are actually going to make the strap. So again, not the very last row, but the second to last row. So what I do to make the strap is I actually single crochet my way down the side of the off-the-shoulder design portion of the top, all the way down to the end, and then I flip it over, and then I single crochet my way towards the side where I started, but I stop right in the middle, and then I chain my strap. And normally my straps are about 100 chains, but you can always double check and put it against yourself and measure out how long you need your strap to be. But remember that you need it to be really long because we're going to make that crisscross design in the back. So yeah, make sure it's really long. And then after you chain that chain, you're going to go back on that chain with a slip stitch, and then you're going to crochet your way up the side of the portion of the top to the last row, and then you're going to crochet your last row of loops all the way to the opposite side, and you're going to do the exact same thing with making the strap, and then crocheting your way back up and ending up right there. I know that was a lot to take in, but hopefully I could show you and you could understand what I just did. So again, I made my strap. I went back on it using a slip stitch, and then I crocheted my way back up. That way I can make my last row of loops, and then I'm going to create my last row of loops the exact same way that I did the rest of the rows of loops, chain 5, and then go into the next loop, slip stitch, and then chain 5, go into the next loop, and then slip stitch, so on and so forth until I reach the end. And once I reach the end, again, I'm going to make my second strap the exact same way that I did the first strap. Going to chain a really long chain, and then I'm going to crochet my way up. And then I thought I was going to be done, but I actually added one last detail to this top because, I mean, it looks nice already, but it needed that extra oomph. And what that extra oomph was for me was a picot stitch, a picot stitch. I honestly don't know what it's called. But if you like the top the way it looks like this, then you're done with your project. But I needed those extra little points, so I decided to do one last row of picot stitches. Anyway, all that is a bundle of chains. So you're going to go into a loop, you're going to chain 3, and then slip stitch into that first chain that you made. And that's going to make this little crochet bundle right here, this little point. And that's what a picot stitch is, or picot stitch. Super easy. And then you're going to chain 1. I didn't chain 1 right there, but you chain 1, and then you slip stitch into the space in between that loop and the next loop. And then you're going to chain 1, and then slip stitch into the next loop, and create another picot stitch by chaining 3, and then slip stitching into that very first chain that you made out of those 3, and there you go. And then you're going to chain 1, which I still didn't do. Oh, there you go. Chain 1, and then slip stitch into that space in between, chain 1, and then slip stitch into the next loop, and then create your picot stitch by chaining 3, and then slip stitching into that first chain, and then chain 1, and then slip stitch into the space in between, chain 1, and then slip stitch into the next loop, create your picot stitch, and then chain 1, and then slip stitch into the space in between, and so on and so forth, all the way to the end of your top. And then once you're finished with that, then you are completely finished with the top, unless of course you didn't want to do this in the first place and you were already done. But if you wanted to add those extra points to your top, then after you're finished crocheting that row, then you're finished crocheting that top. And the very last thing that you need to do with this in order to be completely done with this amazing project is to lace up your straps. Now I like doing a kind of corset style back to each of my tops, and all you have to do is get your strap from either side and reach it over to the opposite side and attach it to the top portion of the bottom portion of your top. And then you're going to reach it over to the opposite side of that and attach it to the middle portion of that portion of the top. And then you're going to reach it over to the opposite side again and attach it to the bottom portion of that portion of the top. And then you're going to grab the second strap and do the exact same thing, just everything opposite. So you're going to reach it on over to the opposite side and then attach it to the top, and then reach it on over to the opposite side of that and attach it to the middle, and then bring it through, and then reach over to the opposite side one last time and attach it to the bottom. And then once you have brought that strap through, you have completed the top. Yay! And it does look like a giant mess of crochet everything right now, and even when I try to align it so it can look nice and pretty, it is a little complicated. And if you did not notice already, I actually still have the yarn attached to the yarn ball on this project, where normally you would have cut it once you were finished with the last row, but I make a lot of tutorials. I need to salvage my yarn, so I'm actually going to unravel this top and make my next tutorial with the same yarn. So that's why I did not cut the yarn from the yarn ball, but obviously if you're going to wear it or give it to someone, then you're going to cut the yarn from the yarn ball and then seal it off, and you're good and you can rock it. And yeah. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and also click that red subscribe button if you have not already, so I can see you next time. Bye!